I know what you're thinking. You're thinking this guy is crazy. How could he say that 2005's Fantastic Four is perfect? Well, I'm not saying all of it is perfect. I can recognize that there are at least a few flaws in this movie, some big,
maybe it's missing a utility belt,
some small.
It's the Invisible Woman.
But there is one huge part of this movie that is perfect. So perfect that if Marvel doesn't get this right in their reboot with Pedro Pascal next year, I really think that they're screwed.
Cuckoo Cachoo got screwed.
To our future.
We got what we wanted.
I don't trust him.
The cloud has fundamentally altered our DNA. It's terrible news. I've always wanted power.
We're the only ones who can stop him.
Flamer!
Fantastic Four. Only in theaters.
Now, full disclosure, I love these movies. I absolutely adore the Fantastic Four. They are some of my favorite characters in all of comics. I grew up reading those comics. So when these movies came out originally, I was so hyped as a teenager to go and spend my money and go see these movies with my friends. I absolutely loved them. And then everybody for the rest of time continued to crap on them. And the whole time, not before all the, oh, let's go at Disney and say everything that they're doing is bad now. Like, I've been saying that these movies are good this entire time. And again, to be clear, I'm not saying that these movies are perfect. There are definitely some issues. Like you have Mr. Fantastic's powers looking really bad at certain points, like the early days of Pixar animation bad, with everything like when his hand slips underneath the door. It just looks terrible. Michael Chiklis in the suit doesn't look super great, and there's also an issue with his character. They decided to basically make him into a caricature as soon as he became the Thing. Like all of a sudden, he just started talking as if he was the comic book, when before he wasn't talking like that at all.
Good thing you're flexible enough to watch your own back. Cause I ain't doing it no more.
Jessica Alba, probably not in the best position to be successful in this movie. The script asked a lot of her acting abilities, and I don't think that was quite met. And then there's the Human Torch. And there's actually nothing wrong with that character. Johnny Storm is played so well by Chris Evans. He is literally fantastic.
I have to give you props, Johnny. You were on fire.
Oh, you're hot.
Why, thank you. So are you.
So while there are definitely some problems in this movie, there are also some incredible things that are happening that lead to a really amazing and, yeah, I'd say perfect thing that happens later. What leads to that, though, is great. The dynamics between these family members, and it is a family. That's one of the things I love most about the Fantastic Four, is that they are literally Marvel's first family. They are a family unit. They love each other. They're there for one another. They actually care about what's happening in each other's lives. There's actual relationships between these family members. I would say it's kind of appropriate, but there are 4 different relationships within this family. First being like the sibling dynamics. There's 3 of those. You have basically like the actual siblings. You have Johnny and Sue is constantly trying to hold Johnny back because Johnny is so reckless and Johnny wants freedom. And so he's trying to get away from like this mother attitude that his older sister has for him.
You can't use your powers in public, Johnny.
You guys are worse than NASA.
You have the brotherly rivalry between Johnny and Ben Grimm. They're constantly bickering and arguing and playing pranks on each other.
Johnny!
And this movie plays most of that for laughs, but there are some really serious moments where that comes into play and starts to split this family apart.
Hey, look what the marketing guys did. Look, check it out. Listen. You love this.
It's clobbering time!
It's catchy, right? Isn't that great?
Clobbering time!
Oh, that was the prototype!
And then you have the brother relationship between Mr. Fantastic and Ben Grimm. These two that have constantly been there for one another. Ben Grimm has always been watching Reed's back, and Reed is supposed to be there for Ben, but when Ben becomes the Thing and becomes this monster, so much so that he doesn't even recognize himself anymore, so he turns to his friend, and his friend, Mr. Fantastic, makes a vow that he will not rest until he makes Ben look like Ben again, and then immediately he becomes distracted with Sue.
Ben, I don't know if this thing will change us back or make us worse. I need you to be patient for a little while longer.
Reed, look at me!
I am looking! That's why I can't make a mistake. I've got to get it right, and it's not right yet. We need to test
I
this.
spent my whole life protecting you, and for what? So you can play Twister with your girlfriend while I'm the freak of the week?
So of course that's going to create some conflict. And then lastly, you have the relationship between Sue and Reed, this romance between the two. Sue is really pursuing Reed. Reed is oblivious because he's so caught up in his science and his experiments, and he's such a nerd that he just doesn't even recognize the moves that Sue is trying to put on. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense in the comics. It doesn't make sense here in this movie why Sue would be so into Reed. But I guess, some people like nerds, like my wife. Now, each one of these relationships definitely has some baggage attached to it, right? Like some different struggles that you might have. And in this movie, each one of those struggles is exploited by one man, Victor Von Doom.
This is gonna be fun.
Now, for the first part, he's kind of just played as like this billionaire who is wronged. But the second half of this movie, he turns and he becomes this sinister character that is just lurking in the darkness, watching this family on his TV because he's set up all these cameras, which is super creepy, but we don't really get into it. But it's very Von Doom because he's learning, he's acquiring knowledge.
That's my job. To stay a step ahead. To know what other men don't.
Intel that he's going to use to exploit, and he does it in such a perfect way that he splits apart this family. And this is why I say that Fantastic Four from 2005 is perfect, because this ending, this final battle is perfect, because Doom has set up everything in such a way that this family is completely divided. Everyone has gone their different ways. It looks like Victor Von Doom is going to win. He is literally making Mr. Fantastic into a popsicle. And then all of a sudden, this family starts to come back together, because that's what families do. They overcome these struggles, these conflicts, sometimes with words, but often there's not even a conversation that's had. They just overcome it, and they're there for each other because they're family.
Had a little relapse, huh?
Because they care about each other, and they care about each other so much so that even when they're hurt by one another, they're still going to be there for them. And you could really see this through them listening to Reed.
Johnny, supernova. I thought we agreed that was bad. Now!
Because this final battle isn't a battle. It's not, a CGI army against these guys, or just a lot of punching, or that guy gets in the same suit that looks exactly like the other guy's suit and they just fight. It's not any of that typical superhero fights. This is a Fantastic Four ending, because you have Reed Richards, the smartest man on the planet, essentially just calling the shots for his family members of using their abilities in a way to be able to overcome the power and the pride of Victor Von Doom by using science.
Science is cool.
Because they are scientists. They're not soldiers. They're not some like heavyweight fighters. They're just scientists. They're nerds. And they use that knowledge that they have with the powers that they've acquired through this cosmic energy to be able to find a way to beat Dr. Doom. So when Johnny goes supernova and Sue contains that heat, and then Ben just, he doesn't get a lot to do. All the thing does is really just tear off a hydrant and then like put his foot down, which isn't a whole lot, but it's something. And Mr. Fantastic moves in such a way to be able to create some momentum for that water to go right at Dr. Doom. So heating him and then cooling him down, using science to overcome him and essentially turn him into a statue. That is so perfect for the Fantastic Four. It's not a great hand-to-hand fight. It's just them being super smart, and that's what Marvel needs to figure out. Use the family dynamics to have an ending that actually works for these characters. Fantastic Four from 2005 did it in such a perfect way that I think Marvel should take that, use it like a mold to be able to help them kind of work out and frame out what their next project should be for the Fantastic Four. I think if they do that, they'll probably have a pretty good movie on their hands. And if they don't get the dynamics right, if they don't get the way that these heroes become heroic right, I think that we're in trouble. But here's hoping that it's good. I'll see you in the next one.